Fantasy Freaks and Geeks, what's going on? James Coe here with you. It is now time to talk about some sleeper running backs, baby. Let's get it going. I got quite a few names, but full disclosure, so many of these names are injury dependent. Like the first guy I'm going to bring up, Patrick Taylor, taking on Miami. Well, Isaac Guerendo's dealing with a hamstring injury. He did not practice on Wednesday. It's entirely possible he goes Friday as a full participant and ends up being a starter there on Sunday, which would then, of course, render Patrick Taylor kind of sort of irrelevant. But if somebody has left Patrick Taylor on the waiver wire, or shoot, maybe we're playing DFS now, like your boy, like me. I'm playing DFS now because, I don't have any playoff teams, bro. Your boy got eliminated, man. Damn, dude. Rough year for your guy over here. Anyway, but no, Patrick Taylor, again, taking on Miami. Isaac Guerendo dealing with that hamstring injury, right? So again, not only did he not practice Wednesday, I need to bring up some history when we're talking about Isaac Guerendo. He has dealt with hamstring issues, throughout his entire playing career. We're talking about going all the way back to college. This guy was in and out of the lineup with hamstring issues. And professionally, he did not play almost any of the training camp. He was out for almost the entire training camp with a hamstring injury as well. This dude's got bad hammies, man. He's an awesome athlete, is Isaac Guerendo. We're talking about a guy that's 220 pounds that can run a 4.33 40. Come on, bro. This guy's he's an alien. He's a freak. But again, it's kind of weird, but sometimes the forces of nature balance everything out. This guy was unfortunately cursed with bad hammies. So again, he's dealt with hamstring injuries in the past, and he's dealt with hamstring injuries a lot. I actually would not be surprised to see Patrick Taylor end up taking the reins here in a pivotal week number 16. The fantasy semifinals, baby. We're running out Patrick Taylor. Let's freaking go. By the way, decent matchup against Miami as well. The Dolphins are dead last in yards after contact allowed to the running back position. All right, if we want to talk about a deep sleeper, let's talk about Antonio Gibson. Now, this guy is an absolute, he's a dart throw. Okay. We know about Antonio Gibson, the player, converted wide receiver, blah, 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 blah. All right. New England's taken on Buffalo. So I want to start the analysis by saying Ramondre Stevenson is a hard fade this week. The Pats are a 14-point dog. And I want you guys to, if you guys have been listening to this podcast, I've talked about it a lot. Stevenson does not do well in negative game scripts, right? He had a 9.5 PPR point performance just last week in a 14-point loss where the Patriots lost 30-17. And on the season, in the 5 games, the Patriots have lost by 7 or more points. It's not even that much, 7 or more. Ramondre is averaging just 5.16 PPR points per game. He has zero double-digit PPR performances in those 5 games. Now, if it's a close game, my dude's balling out. He's averaging more than 17 PPR points per game with multiple 20-point games on the docket as well. But I say this to say that the reverse correlation, if that makes any sense, is not necessarily true with Antonio Gibson. Gibson does play more, and he does score a little bit more in blowouts, but it's not a great one-for-one matching up thing because the team has really experimented with JaMycal Hasty as the primary backup to Ramondre. So I go and look at the timeshare and the opportunities and all. Again, they lost by 14 points, right? Last week, JaMycal Hasty only played on 2 offensive snaps. Gibson took home 15 snaps. That was 30% snap share. So, and by the way, that game was very close in the first half. If Buffalo jumps out to a big lead, which could totally happen, Gibson's snap share could push 50%. The Bills, meanwhile, by the way, if they do build a big lead, what's going to happen? They're going to have to throw that football. right? And the Bills, they've given up the most receptions and the most receiving yards to running backs this year. Man, if it is Antonio Gibson in the backfield catching passes from Drake May, very easily could I see Antonio Gibson taking home, I don't know, 4 grabs for 35 yards. He chips in another 30 on the ground, and we're cooking, right? Double-digit PPR performances, right? We're talking maybe, I don't know, what are we talking here? 60 total yards, 4 grabs. We get to 10. Again, deep sleeper, right? In most leagues, you're not going to be playing this guy, but if you're in a deeper league, 14-team league, very competitive league, your running back situation is a mess. I mean, maybe you got David Montgomery, and there ain't no running backs out there. Antonio Gibson is out there. Okay, Antonio Gibson is out there, and if we're taking a shot in the dark and you want some kind of upside, this guy could be it. And again, I'm laying out a median projection of 10. What about if he just falls into the end zone? It's a complete blowout, garbage time, and he gets into the end zone. Now we're cooking. 16 points, 17 points, 18 points. You know what I mean? Antonio Gibson has some interesting upside against Buffalo. Now, the reason he's a deep sleeper is, dude, what's his floor? His floor is literally like 2 or 3 points. I get it. I totally get it. I'm not trying to say I'm not that confident in Antonio Gibson, right? Because Jermichael Hasty still lurks. By the way, Buffalo does tend to play down to their level of competition. This game could end up being closer, and Ramondre could end up in a, closer game script. Who knows? But I did want to throw that out there. I just want to throw that out there. Speaking of pass catching running backs, how about Amir Abdullah taking on Jacksonville? This is the NFL's version of the toilet bowl. I mean, they're flexing out games. Bro, we might as well flex this game out to like Lifetime Network or something, bro. I mean, Raiders versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, who the Raiders? The Raiders are going to throw out Aiden O'Connell. Jacksonville's going to throw out Mac Jones, bro. I mean, we got 2 coaches that may not be coaching in the NFL next year. Damn. But Amir Abdullah is in an interesting spot. Okay. Sincere McCormick injured his ankle. Don't know about his status quite yet. Zamir White, he's on IR. Only Alexander Madison remains. And yeah, man, it's Alexander Madison. He's not been great. I am going to take my chances on a guy that has obviously shown a lot more in the passing game. And speaking of, the Jaguars have given up the 5th most receptions and the 2nd most receiving yards to running backs. This obviously pairs perfectly. It's peanut butter and jelly. It's hot sauce and fried chicken when we're talking about the matchup stats and Amir Abdullah as a pass-catching running back. All right, again, we already know about Jerome Ford. He's taken on Cincinnati. Chubb has a broken foot. He's going to be out for the season. It's a solid matchup against Cincinnati. The Bengals are generally below league average in a number of defensive rushing stats. Specifically, though, they rank 5th worst in yards after contact allowed. So I don't love Jerome Ford, y'all. I don't. But I know if you've got him, if you want to throw him into the flex, I think that could be all right. And I almost wonder if Cincinnati comes out to a big lead, do they end up throwing it to Jerome Ford? Because honestly, I think that's his easiest path to having a decent PPR game. In standard league formats, man, I've got my concerns about Jerome Ford because, again, I talked about it in yesterday's episode, DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I think he's going to submarine this offense, man. The one thing that's interesting, though, is that they did say, Stefanski did say that Jameis is the direct backup. It's almost as if, are they going to hedge their bets? You know what I'm saying? Are they hedging? They might be hedging here. Where if DTR is an absolute disaster, do they make a quarterback change at halftime? They might. They might. Especially if they are down quite a bit. In which case, Jerome Ford, it's not bad. It's not bad. Again, Kendre Miller is another running back that is dependent on injury. Alvin Kamara dealing with a growing injury. Look, we don't know the severity, but let's be real. He missed practice on Wednesday, and the team also just signed Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Remember, CEH played at LSU, right? So New Orleans picking him up. It's a little bit of a homecoming. Good stuff, right? It's a good story, but I think the fact that the Saints picked up Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a clear indication that Kamara is likely to miss Week 16. Obviously, got to keep a very close eye on those injury reports. Now, Kendre Miller was okay. I don't think he was great. He wasn't, beating the doors down or anything, but he's all right. And he will be a starting running back taking on a Green Bay defense that, it's a little bit of an up and down matchup. But I will say this: if you notice, there's a theme here. By the way, there's always for me, whenever I'm looking at backups that could potentially be, good PPR options, you got to look at their pass catching chops. And then also, what does the matchup look like from a pass catching perspective? Because listen, if they could get it done on the ground, they'd already be starters. You know what I'm saying? In most cases, there's some instances where that's not true. Like Kamani Vidal, I think, would be just fine. Jalen Wright would be just fine if they gave him a full complement of snaps on the ground. But most of these guys, and I do think Kendre Miller fits into this mold as well, most of these guys, they need to get by out of the backfield. They need to start getting some passes thrown their way to really come through for you in fantasy football. And I think this one against Green Bay, with Green Bay most likely to be dominating, again, we're hoping that this dude can catch some passes. Well, that's good because matchup data there is pretty encouraging. The Packers have allowed the 6th most receptions and the 4th most receiving yards to this position group on the year. Kendre Miller could be a little bit of a PPR scam. I like it. All right, what are we doing with Tajae Spears, y'all? Tony Pollard nursing an ankle injury, did not practice on Wednesday. Man, they're taking on the Colts, and it is a beautiful matchup. I love this matchup for Tajae Spears or Tony Pollard. The Colts have allowed the 3rd most scrimmage yards to running backs, and they are bottom 10 in both yards after contact and explosive run rate allowed. So again, when we're talking about upside, this is it, man. They give up a lot of explosive runs, and Tajae Spears or Tony Pollard could absolutely take advantage. That would be great, man. And speaking of explosions, Tajae Spears had an explosive game in Week 15. Now, he only had 4 carries for 5 yards, but he did have a touchdown among those 4 carries. And, man, he saw 7 targets, bro. 7 targets, resulting in 6 catches for 87 receiving yards. That's pretty good. Added another touchdown right there, racked up 27.2 PPR points. Now, I'm not going to get so bullish just to say, well, hey, if he's a starter, he's good for, 16, 17 points. But I will say, I think he'll be in line for an easy 12 to 14, and then again, if he scores, okay, now we're cooking, baby. Let's go. But no, I think Tajae Spears is in a good spot if Tony Pollard does not go. If Tony Pollard does go, even in a limited capacity, I'm not sure how much we're trusting Tajae Spears. I think that game, by the way, is going to be extremely low scoring. Indianapolis is a little bit of a mess on offense. Titans, obviously, a huge mess offensively. We got Mason Rudolph making the start there for Tennessee. So I do think this game will be a little bit more lower scoring. We need Tajae Spears, or again, if it's Tony Pollard, we're playing him. But if it's Tajae Spears, we're only playing him if Tony Pollard is fully out. Deep sleeper. How about Netflix Reynolds, a.k.a. Craig Reynolds, taking on Chicago? It does sound like Reynolds will get the first crack at being the backup to Jahmyr Gibbs, with Montgomery. I don't know if he's out for the season. I know they're trying to figure that out. He's seeing like a 3rd opinion. He's seeking like a 4th opinion. Some doctor's going to tell him he can play at the end of the year if they get to the Super Bowl. I'm sure of it. So he's trying to put off that surgery, man. That would put him out for the entire year. We're talking about David Montgomery here. But if we're looking at a direct backup, a direct, role backup, Montgomery's the power back. Well, Craig Reynolds, he's 216 pounds. He runs downhill. Doesn't give you a lot laterally. But again, he's more of a power complement to Jahmyr Gibbs. Much more so than I think Sion Vaki. I think I'm saying his name right, Sion Vaki. And by the way, the Bears have given up the 5th most fantasy points per game to the running back position. So that's why this matters, right? Deep sleeper Craig Reynolds. But I can't go 10 toes in there because, man, I can't help but think that maybe Sion Vaki also has a role. So, like, that would be a true disaster in that Detroit backfield, right? Like, okay, Gibbs takes home like 50%, 55% of the snaps. And then Craig Reynolds takes home like, 22%, and Sion Vaki takes home like 22%. Okay, then we're in trouble. Then we're in trouble with both Craig Reynolds and Sion Vaki, but I will throw Vaki into this mix as well. He's a rookie out of Utah. Super interesting athletic profile. First of all, dude, he's 5'10", 210 pounds. Dude's a converted cornerback. What? I've seen a lot of things, man. Like, converted linebackers. I've seen converted wide receivers. You see a lot of converted wide receivers. You see converted quarterbacks. Converted corner? Yo, I don't know if that's the first, but it's rare. It's not the first. There's no way that's the first, but it's rare though. It is absolutely rare. He only has one full season as a running back at Utah. That's crazy. He was a freaking corner there for the longest time. Anyways, like I said, 5'10", 210 pounds, super athletic profile, because he ran an extremely slow 4.62 40. Can you imagine a corner running a 4.62? Golly, no wonder he switched to running back. Good Lord. But by the way, weird dimensions too. 5'10", 210. He's just a brick. Dude's a brick. 4.62 40. Crazy slow. And you know my brand. I don't like these crazy slow dudes. But at the same time, he also posted a very impressive, super impressive 39.5-inch vertical with a 10.5 broad jump. Now, again, when you're pushing 40 inches, that is impressive, man. At 210 pounds, I'll take it. I like it. So again, short area burst, and we certainly see that on the game tape for sure, 100%. No top end speed. Yep, that shows up on tape as well. But really good lateral quickness. He's got this like little juke move that he goes to a lot. That's actually pretty effective. It's not even like a jump cut. It's more of like a head and shoulder fake or something, and he gives you a little bit of a pivot off the power foot, man. But I don't know. It's very interesting. Anyways, he is a converted corner, but he does have great hands. Dude, he's got really good hands. So I do think that Sion Vaki is more of like the pass catching option, but again, 210 pounds, it's not like he's a small guy. I didn't see it. I mean, I don't see the profile of a power back, but I think he can run downhill, at least from what I saw. I only saw a few games of his from Utah. So we'll go with it from there. Anyways, so there you go. That's your sleeper list at the running back position. Sion Vaki, deep sleeper. Certainly somebody that I think you can, if you're in Dynasty, go ahead and stash this dude. Interesting guy, interesting athletic profile. He might end up being nothing, but shoot, who knows? I don't know. Anyways, so there you go. That's the show. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow when we talk about wide receivers. Until then, remember, it's never too late to chase your dreams. Peace.